he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
No, J.D. Vance has never been to Ukraine. In fact, there is a recording of J.D. Vance that said he doesn't give a damn one way or another about Ukraine. I want to intersperse those scenes with the doctrine of fascism. We need to know what we are up against. And so, let's go over this doctrine of fascism, a 1932 document by Benito Mussolini. So fascism is action, and it is thought, action in which doctrine is immanent. Thus, many of the practical expressions of fascism, such as party organization, system of education, and discipline, can only be understood when considered in relation to its general attitude towards life, a spiritual attitude. Fascism sees in the world not only those superficial material aspects in which man appears as an individual standing by himself, self-centered, subject to natural law, which instinctively urges him toward a life of selfish, momentary pleasure, founded on duty, self-sacrifice, the renunciation of self-interest by death itself. So, I don't agree with everything that this is propaganda, right? It's spiritual. There's nothing spiritual about fascism whatsoever. But a lot of times they'll admit to, founded on duty, right? You got to obey, self-sacrifice, right? Sacrifice yourself for the Fuhrer. The renunciation of self-interest by death itself. By death itself. They'll expect their goons, they'll expect their minions to go down for the crap that they're talking about. General reaction of the century against the materialistic positivism of the 19th century. So overall, fascism is against individual freedoms. It's against the individual. It's all about the state. The state is supreme. Now, the American state, American country, is actually made up of 50 states, 14 colonies, and 900 military bases. Fascism is against classical liberalism. It's against the individual. It's against socialism, and it's against democracy. It's in favor of authoritarianism. It's in favor of statist. It's a statist, totalitarian, authoritarian, hierarchical, pro-violence, pro-power to command others, pro-bullying. It's bullyism. It's controlism. It's oppressionism. Barbarism, troglodytism, Neanderthalism. It's the law of jungleism. Now he's going to try to make it sound like it's smarter than what it actually is, but it's not smart. We've had kings and queens for the longest time. Kings and queens want you to obey them, and they believe that they are the state, so therefore if you just obey them, then the whole state, the whole country, the whole nation state will act better, be more in unison. But the people have to have something to fight for, an ideal to fight for, not just a man, not just a guy, a fallible guy. So he says a bunch of things, Mussolini does. The state, he says, is the conscience of the people, and it asserts the rights of the states. Again, America, in terms of political science, is a state, but it's made up of 50 states. So I really think that the 50 states have got to stand up, because if these fascists are all about the state, well, if we're talking about the union of 50 states, which is what America is, then that means that we got 50 possible either fascist or anti-fascist. We got 50 Americans or 50 fascist totalitarian Nazis. We got 50 constitutionalists, proud Americans, strong Americans who believe in the Bill of Rights and individual freedoms and believe that this country is supposed to be made up of free people. It's supposed to be a free country made up of free men. Or we're just supposed to be a pawn in this hierarchy that the Fuhrer comes up with. Let's listen to some more.
I have been to.
Count one.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
Well, I don't understand. J.D. Vance is just raising his voice, and he's trying to answer the questions. Let's just carry on. By the exercise of his free will, man must create his own world. Fascism wants man to be active and to engage in action with all of his energies. It wants him to be manfully aware of the difficulties besetting him and ready to face them. It conceives of life as a struggle. The fascist disdains an easy life. So let's just make sure we found it on duty, self-sacrifice, the renunciation of self-interest by death itself, general reaction of the century against the materialistic positivism of the 19th century. Fascism, it is opposed to all Jacobinistic utopias and innovations. That's the French Revolution. It does not believe in the possibility of happiness on earth as conceived by the economistic literature of the 18th century. Only by entering into the process of reality and taking possession of the forces at work with can man act on man and nature. Man on man? Well, that sounds pretty gay if you ask me.
God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Look at your body.
Look
at your body language.
You're in no position to dictate
he
what
believes,
we're going to feel.
What you're going to feel, he's saying about your economy. You're going to feel with the economy.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position.
I like that. You're going to feel influence. You're going to feel influence. So only by entering into the process of reality and taking possession of the forces that work within it can man act on man and on nature. Anti-individualistic. The fascist conception of life stresses the importance of the state, accepts the individual only insofar as his interests coincide with those of the state, which stands for the conscience and the universal will of man as historic entity. It is opposed to classical liberalism. That's Americanism. That's American constitutionalism. That's against the Bill of Rights, which arose as a reaction to absolutism and exhausted its historical function when the state became the expression of the conscience and will of the people. Liberalism denied the state in the name of the individual. Fascism reasserts the rights of the state as expressed in the real essence of the individual. That's such an important line. He's saying that it's opposed to classical liberalism, which arose as a reaction to absolutism. I think absolutism is fascism. Fascism is absolutism. He's going to try to say he's not taking it back to the kings and queens. He's not just trying to say it's a strict hierarchy, and then somehow, even in some weird way, he's going to leave some elbow room to allow the individual to have some freedoms. But everything is for the state. Everything is for the Fuhrer. Everything is for the autocratic dictator, whether democratically elected or just forced himself into the door. This is barbarism. This is regressive. This has taken us back before 1789. Let's listen to some more of this.
You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War.
So Donald thinks that we're just playing cards here, but he's very serious. The rights of the state is expressed in the real essence of the individual. The fascist conception of the state is all-embracing. Outside of it, no human or spiritual values can exist, much less have value. Thus understood, fascism is totalitarian. And the fascist state, a synthesis and a unit inclusive of all values, interprets, develops, and potentates. Does any damn American fascist even know what potentates is? The whole life of a people. No individuals or groups, political parties, cultural associations, Economic unions, social classes exist outside the state. No other political parties. You got the state party, and then you got the state party. No cultural associations, no economic unions, no social. You can't have poor. There isn't the poor all over the world. There isn't the homelessness all over the world. It's all about the state. And again, what is the state? America is a union of states. And so really America would have to be the majority of the state. And is it the state governments, the majority of the people? And if people want to say, well, you know, technically, even though Mussolini is saying that fascism doesn't need to be democratically elected or have the majority, well, Donald was elected. Well, there's problems with that. He was an illegitimate candidate when it came to the 14th Amendment. He walked in the damn Oval Office breaking the Constitution. Also, Donald got 77 million votes. Kamala Harris got 77 million votes. So if the state is the expression of the will of the people, well, then that means our government should be pretty much 50-50, right? It should be half of this maggots, of these fascist, totalitarian, authoritarian, bully controlism, oppressionism maggots, right? And then the other half will be a bunch of neoliberals, which there's a lot of problems with neoliberalism. Well, there's a bunch of problems. She did quote some of the Bill of Rights. So Kamala did know about our individual freedoms that we have, you know, emanating from the Bill of Rights. But there's a lot of problems with neoliberalism. They're going to allow the genocide, and they've walked away from the middle class and the working class. They don't care that we got homelessness on our streets, and they haven't done jack shit about the poor. So there's a lot of problems with the neoliberalism. Let's carry on with what we're reading here. Fascism is therefore opposed to socialism, to which unity within the state, which amalgamates classes into a single economic and ethical reality, is unknown, which sees in history nothing but the class struggle. Fascism is likewise opposed to trade unionism as a class weapon. So again, you just read it's against socialism, it's against trade unionism. So they don't even want, you know, the mechanics to unionize. They don't want the truck drivers to unionize. Fascism recognizes the real need which gave rise to socialism and trade unionism, giving them due weight in the guild or corporative system in which divergent interests are coordinated and harmonized in the unity of the state. I've heard a lot of reductive definitions of fascism, and corporatism, people have said that's fascism too. Corporatism becomes fascism because, of course it does. You have a hierarchical corporation, and then they want their property to be protected. Does the state, if there was a riot that was about to happen, does the state protect the buildings, or do they protect the people? They protect the buildings. They protect capital. And so the corporation, which is not, you know, it's just a file in a file cabinet, it's just completely fictional, actually has the protection of the police, whereas the individuals do not. That's neoliberalism. So there's a lot of fascist, neoliberalism has a lot of fascist tendencies, and also in America there is no left opposition. The neoliberals, the Democrats, are about corporatism and imperialism. They care about corporatism, they care about imperialism. So there is no left opposition. We have no left opposition. Bernie Sanders and AOC, those are the two left opposition that we have in our U.S. government. Now, maybe there's some governors, and there's a lot of enlightened, you know, smart, intelligent individuals in America, but our government is wholly devoid of any kind of opposition. One person stopped the Democrats from walking into the Department of Education. Who was that guy? What was his name? Where did he come from? They didn't know what to do. One guy stood in front of a door, and they're like, well, fuck. I guess we're fucked. Meanwhile, South Korea, what did they do in South Korea? South Korea, when they declared martial law, they stormed the doors. They stormed the Bastille, went in, voted against martial law, and then got their country back. Do you think Republicans or Democrats will do that? There is a danger of emergency powers. If this damn Fuhrer, this dictator, autocratic person, you know, wannabe, if he sees an emergency, let's say the United States of America is invaded, he may declare martial law. If there's a big tornado or a hurricane, he may declare emergency powers. He's already declared emergency powers for the border. The reason why that is so appealing for an autocratic, monarchical dictator is because they get to suspend the Constitution. He's talked about ripping up the Constitution. He's talked about shooting protesters. They've thrown journalists in jail. He's also talking about never fucking leaving. And don't, you should not skirt that issue. If he doesn't fucking leave, then that means every true, red-blooded American has to fucking stand up. He's going to send us into a civil war because he doesn't want to walk away after 4 years. That's the goddamn Constitution. That's how America fucking works. But if somebody doesn't just walk out of the fucking White House, well, what do? Well, they got, immunity, don't they? Well, they're not technically the president. The president has immunity. So if they're not the legitimately elected president, and if the election is close, holy shit, man. He lied to us and said that he won the election when he didn't win the election.
You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the...
Have you said thank you? Have you kissed our ass enough? Fascism is therefore opposed to that form of democracy which equates a nation to the majority, lowering it to the level of the largest number, but it is the purest form of democracy if the nation be considered as it should be from the point of view of quality rather than quantity as an idea, the mightiest, Again, 77 million people voted for Kamala, 77 million people voted for Donald. He's acting like he's got the biggest mandate that's ever given a president in all human history. No, he does not. He barely fucking won the thing. And technically speaking, 50% of America didn't fucking vote. So you might be able to say that he represents the will of 25% of America, whereas 25% of America, 24.9% of America voted for Kamala, who just barely lost. But the vast majority of America didn't vote at all. So he's only representing, at the most, 25% of the country. The will to power. So this is, oppression, bullyism, Neanderthalism, barbarism, the law of the jungleism. We're supposed to be a nation of laws, not of men. We're supposed to be able to protect our freedoms, and we're supposed to establish justice and to form a more perfect union. You think Donald wakes up and reads the preamble? He's like, hey, what virtues do I want to live for today? He wakes up and says, I'm going to try to form a more perfect union. I'm going to promote the general welfare, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, establish justice, and to protect freedoms for ourselves and for our posterity. You think he says that? You think he loves the Constitution? You think he loves what America's about? Has he even read one single Federalist paper? Rather, it is the state which creates the nation. So it's all about the state, the state, the state, the state. And in some respects, the state, to me, does seem immortal, but only because I live in America. So the 50 states of America, those 50 states, that seems immortal. And then because we benefited from the world system, and we basically created the world system, the map that I had been given, in the 90s, I thought was the map going to be forever. So Canada kind of looks like it's going to be there forever. Mexico, Guatemala, Bolivia, Ukraine, I thought would be there forever. South Africa. But if you know anything about history or politics, a lot of times you'll have a change of a country. Sudan, right? You got a civil war in Sudan. Well, that could turn into 2 countries one day. And you have a lot of separatist movements. You got a separatist movement in Cameroon and in other places too. I forget the specific details. But the state isn't immortal. The state looks pretty immortal to me because I feel like Tennessee is always going to be there. Montana is always going to be there. New York, California, America, this nation of 50 states, it looks like we're always going to be there. But it's not inevitable. People live and people die. Nations, nations and civilizations and empires, they are born and they die too. And so we've only been around for 300 years. The Romans, they were around for fucking long-ass time. Mongolians, I want to say hundreds, if not thousands of years, right? So the British Empire, you've had a lot of empires that have come and gone. The state, it's all about the state, the state, the state. So we're supposed to sacrifice ourselves. We're supposed to throw our bodies upon the gears and the wheels of the lever of everybody else who says that the state isn't good. Well, you got 50 governors, okay? So as much as the president kind of represents the state of America, 50 governors, if you want to just use the definition that Mussolini has given, they represent the state. The governors represent their own individualistic states. From an active, self-conscious political will expressing itself in action, a nation as expressed in the state is a living ethical entity only insofar as it is progressive. Inactivity is death. Therefore, the state is not only authority which governs and confers legal form and spiritual value on individual wills, but it is also power which makes its will felt and respected beyond its frontiers. Power, control, command. I'll tell you what to do.
Offer some
you better come in here, Zelensky, and you better kiss my ass. You better kiss my ass.
Your country.
He isn't trying to save his country. He's going to suck Putin's dick.
Speak very loudly about the war.
He's not speaking loudly.
No, he is speaking loudly.
Your country's in big trouble. Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet.
You haven't been alone.
In this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion. We gave you military equipment, and your men are brave, but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have our military equipment...
Do you see him just push him? He just pushed him, right? He's like, you'll listen to me, and I don't have to listen to you. Frankly, you don't have to obey anything Zelensky says. He's just making his point. He's not saying you need to pick up that rag, you need to be a slave, you need to do as I say. He's trying to have a conversation. And because he's not as diplomatic as the French president with all the hand touching and the, and the buddy shit, this is serious. Life is serious, and Zelensky knows that this was a high-level meeting and that he needed to do, a good job here. He comes into our house. He was a guest in our house. Is this how you're supposed to treat a guest? Inactivity is death. Therefore, the state is not only... I won't say I like this about fascism, but what I've noticed throughout history is that strategies and tactics and philosophies, right? So the thoughts and the ideas... Strategies and tactics will matter no matter who's in charge. And so strategy and tactics can help the fascists, or strategy and tactics can help the socialists. Strategy and tactics can help the Americans, or it could help the Nazis. It could help the British redcoats, or it could help, the Americans. And so there's some things that I liked about how they say, fascism is action. Okay, I'm in favor of action. When it says it's a spiritual movement, okay, I'm all soul, I'm all spiritual. That's why I just kind of wholesalely reject what it's a spirit. If you dominate somebody else, you're crushing that person's spirit. So you're allowing your spirit, I guess, to, I don't know, you're crushing somebody else, so I don't know what you technically get out of that. I think sometimes you got to stand up, to bullshit, but for the most of the time, you don't have to keep your boot on somebody's neck. This implies organization and expansion. So, why do you have to expand, right? If you're proud of your people. So I like American constitutionalism. So I'm going to defend American constitutionalism for right now. Because when I think about what defeats fascism, well, anti-fascism defeats fascism. Communism defeated fascism in World War II, but that was the Russians. The USSR, but what was America? Well, I'm going to call this as American constitutionalism, which is just classical liberalism, strong Americanism. So let's be strong Americans. And by being strong Americans, that means we believe in the Constitution. We believe in freedom. We believe in justice, domestic tranquility. We believe in perfecting the Union. The preamble tells us exactly why we have an American government. The preamble is brilliant. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. So, strong Americans defeated fascism. Communism defeated fascism. Anti-fascism defeats fascism. If you have a criminal son of a bitch who says, hey, I want to take your money, take your wife, take your children, take everything that you got, take your bank account, take your house, take your business. If they want to take anything and everything that you got to stand up to it. And actually, by standing up to a criminal piece of shit that, a bully, a fascist, somebody who says, obey me or else violence will happen to you, that's the ideal of a man, to stand up against a criminal fucking low-life piece of shit. Now, he's trying to make, criminality and fascism and bullyism into some sort of doctrine, which I don't believe any of this propaganda, any of this bullshit. I don't believe you even have, I don't even know if American conservatives actually believe in anything at all. If they believe in a conservative economic system, then they would refer to Milton Friedman. If they believed in, conservative when it comes to what America has always been, they would refer to the Constitution. They would go to the Federalist Papers. They would go, not just textualism, strict constructionism, but also originalism. They would go to the founders and what the founders intended. They would make sure that we know that our Bill of Rights and our state Bill of Rights is our basket of freedoms. So it's like conservatives aren't even trying to maintain the status quo at this point. This is something different. This is something different. We've always been fascistic, the elements of fascism. There's authoritarianism that's always been there, a police state. But this is just full-on fucking fascism. This is just evil on its fucking face. So, for good or ill, I think when Donald fucking does the thing, even if there's a long-ass history of America, doing the same shit, he's fucking evil. He's a fascist. And he's only a fascist. Let's keep watching it. He's already pushed him, right? He pushed him. And I was going to kind of intersperse this with the longer speech so that way we could listen to the whole damn thing. Most people are just watching this spat.
If you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days. I heard it from Putin. In 3 days. This is something
maybe
new.
Less.
In 2 weeks. Of course, yes.
It's going to be a
Do you see that? Maybe less, right? So, motherfucking Donald is so up Putin's asshole, it's not even funny. How come Donald won't talk to Netanyahu like he's talking to Zelensky? How come he won't talk to... We just sent $7 billion to Netanyahu, and now we just sent him another $8 billion? How many fucking billions of dollars are we going to send this pile of shit for genocide? To murder a bunch of brown babies? Who the fuck are we as Americans? We're not going to defend our neighbor. We don't believe in the golden rule. You treat your neighbor as you treat yourself. Part of me likes to get out of the empire, fucking business. But if we're going to maintain the empire, then doing something good is a good thing. Ukraine is fighting a revolution. Ukraine is fighting a war of independence. Ukraine was invaded and being occupied by a foreign power. If you're a true blue American, do you remember when Great Britain fucking, occupied us and told us we had to obey? And we overthrew those imperialist bastards. They tried to occupy our country, take over our country, and then we said, no, this is our country, and we're going to run our own country. We're going to declare independence. We're going to have a Bill of Rights, 3 branches of government, the works. We're going to run ourselves. It's not exactly a democracy, it's a republic, but that requires elections, so that requires democratic elements. We need elections. We believe in the rule of law, enumerated powers, bicameralism, federalism. That's what it means to be a strong American. That's what it means to be a strong American. You don't need a ton of education. Just, read your fucking Constitution and memorize it word for word. It's one single document. All of us would be on the same single page.
Very hard thing to do business like this. I tell you.
Just say thank you.
Except
that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's very important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the cards. You're buried there.
He just said he's thankful. I'm thankful. You have to fucking totally kiss his fucking fat ass?
Your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go, and I want this. Look. If you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't with me. That wasn't with me.
They've already had a ceasefire and the fucking Russians goddamn reneged on it.
That was with a guy named Biden who was not a smart person. That was with Obama.
It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to.
Let's carry on. The fascist state is a force. Its functions cannot therefore be limited to those of enforcing order and keeping peace. To achieve this purpose, it enforces discipline, uses authority, entering into the soul, and ruling with undisputed sway. So they're trying to crush your soul and then force you to do the will of the king. This is just fucking feudalism. This is just go back before 1789, before the age of revolution. The foundation of the fascists of revolutionary action in January 1915, the doctrine of action, reformism, revolutionism, centrism, the very echo of that terminology is dead. While in the great river of fascism, one can trace currents which had their source in Sorel, P. Guy, Lagardelle of the movement socialist, and then the cohort of Italian syndicalists who from 1904 to 1914 brought a new note into the Italian socialist environment. Previously emasculated and chloroformed by fornicating with Giolitti's party, a note sounded in O. Olivetti's, Pagini, Liberier, or Run. I don't know who any of these people are, but you see how he's trying to put an intellectual twist on his insanity. When the war ended in 1919, socialism as a doctrine was already dead. It continued to exist only as a grudge. Oh, okay. So let's save this and come back.